I want to introduce our next speaker, Dr. Javarro Russell, who is the Vice President of Business Development and Innovation at ETS, and also a fellow Virginian. So, Dr. Russell, come on up.
Thank you. Hello, hello, hello. I think we are about to get going. And I think he just gave me a promotion as well. And so I've been thinking about the work that I do at ETS, spending a lot of time in business development and in the innovation space, and speaking to institutions, employers, students, workers about what skills they need. And I'm often trying to define how am I going to impact these people in ways that allow them to do the work that they do a lot better than what they've done before. But not for the sake of them, but for the sake of these two that you see on the screen here. This is my son Abraham and my niece Kinsley. And we had a conversation, I guess a couple of weeks ago about what I did. You know, we went to a park and they had the fire truck and the policemen. And I said, well, you know, I have a cool job too. And they said, well, what is that? I said, well, I help people learn. And she said, well, how? And you typically don't get how questions from kids. You get why, you know. But this time around, they asked me, well, how does that work? Well, I make a bunch of questions and I ask them, and then they give me answers, and then I hope they do something with the information after that. And I realized in my response to them that it is really difficult explaining how do we use the information that we gain about what people know, what people are able to do, and make inferences from that information in such a way that it allows us to meet our goals and our purposes. And so today, I wanted to speak to you about the ways in which ETS is attempting to do just that through a project that we're calling Skills for the New Economy. So the how, as I explained to my son and my niece, is a bit more complicated than what I suggested. ETS has about 70 years of history in doing exactly what I just suggested, developing tests that allow us to measure the skills that we can't typically put our hands on. We don't have a bunch of people sitting in rooms making up multiple choice questions, as many people think that occurs at ETS. What actually happens is that we have research scientists that think really deeply about how do we best measure or understand the skill sets that people have, and how do we elicit tasks that allows individuals to demonstrate what they're able to do in those skill sets. And we've been doing this for years. Annually, we produce around 50 million assessments. We have around 200 R&D scientists, as well as another 100 data scientists. And we are well equipped to do this work, and we've been doing it with long-standing partnerships that include OECD and many of the states in terms of their K through 12 testing. So we know how to do it. So how do we leverage that capability to address some of the problems that you all have been attempting to address in your own work? Dealing with the issues of in-demand skills that are changing over time, post-secondary outcomes not meeting the needs of society, the students themselves and employers, and dealing with the direct needs of employers identifying talent with the skill sets that allow their businesses to thrive. Furthermore, because complicating the issue is just what we like to do as researchers, companies are no longer requiring degrees. It may be a bit too early to call this a trend, but we know that this is occurring. And we know that individuals are also taking on jobs that don't necessarily require the degrees that they currently do have. So how does all of this come together, and what does that mean for the way in which we signal the skills that individuals have? And employers historically have been reluctant to assess on some of these non-cognitive skills that many of you have heard are now important to the future of learning and the future of work. And college degrees continue to increase in expense. All of this muddles the ecosystem that we are all trying to innovate within. So oftentimes we're dealing with a lot of noise around the issues that we're attempting to address in this space. And part of the work that we do at ETS is trying to remove the noise, decrease the amount of error in the ways in which we understand and use information about the skills that individuals are able to demonstrate. So the ways in which we do this is often through developing a perspective on the ways in which we should use information about skills, and helping us to develop those perspectives of the same information that you all use. The number of Americans currently in the labor force is 160 million. National post-secondary attainment rates continue to rise, and 70% of Americans still strongly agree that having a degree or professional certificate is essential to their professional goals. But here's where the part of this project becomes a little bit more difficult. The diploma itself serves as a screening device that allows businesses to narrow down the applicant pool quickly and almost without cost to the employer, but with a huge financial burden to the individual. This creates a system that allows us to take advantage of individuals in their attempts to gain the skills needed to be successful in the workforce. So when we think about the ways in which we begin to address some of these problems in this space, there are really two mantras that we want to ensure are out front. One is the purpose for which we want to begin measuring these skills, and the other is the fairness behind that measurement. But we're dealing with this in a space that has many competing motivations. Employers want employees that have skills that will be relevant not only for the job today, but also for the jobs of tomorrow. But employers are often not interested in paying to ensure that individuals have those jobs for today and those jobs for tomorrow. They're also concerned about the liability of assessing those skills in ways that may adversely impact the talent pool or actually even slow down the talent pool that goes into their jobs. And they're also worried about attempting to divorce. This is a very important one. Worried about the attempting to divorce hiring managers from using their intuition to hire candidates and talent at their firms. Higher ed institutions want to ensure that their students are prepared for the future of work. And at the institution, they are more incentivized to ensure that students are graduating from their institutions rather than having those skills that are required in the workforce. So the motivation for the institutions to ensure that individuals have those skills are competing with their desire to ensure that individuals leave their institution with a credential. And skills assessment, as we have developed them, can also compete with the currency that the institutions provide, which is that diploma. If we only measure the skills, and those skills measurements become much more useful than the diploma, then what does it say about the value of the institution? And then there's the students themselves. We want to ensure that students have these skills and are able to demonstrate them in the workforce and elsewhere. The problem is, most of the time, to ensure that students have those skills, they have to take an assessment. There are rarely a student that wants to take an assessment for any reason. Most of the time, if you compel them, that means you're getting information that only exists for that one particular reason that they want to get that job. And then these stakeholders, of course, are coming up in an environment that is often over-assessed as well. So introducing them to another assessment that will require them to demonstrate their skills is not often something that they're interested in. So in order for us to reconcile some of these competing motivations and some of the issues that are in this space, ETS is beginning to develop these collabs where we're bringing together employers, institutions of higher ed, and students and workers that are students as well. And we're going to be talking to them about all of the issues that are related to signaling the skills needed to demonstrate preparedness for the future of work. But the problems that we are facing is that as a testing company, we have to consider all of the intricacies of developing assessments that measure these skills. So oftentimes, we are marching alone in this space of innovation because we are well aware of the issues that are going to face anyone that is interested in measuring these skills in a way that allows individuals to demonstrate what they know, not only for today, but for the future of work. We have to consider higher ed's needs, and that includes where higher ed is going in terms of their interest in developing micro-credentialing programs as well as that 4-year degree. We have to consider the individual's needs, the students and the workers, in terms of their desire to own a credential of a particular skill that they have, and how can that credential be portable across their time in the workspace as well. And then we have to work with employers and really identify what it is that they want to measure. When I go to the employers and I ask them about particular skills that they are interested in, and they tell me that they want critical thinking skills, and they want to ensure that anyone going into their space of employment has this particular skill. And then I ask them, well, how do you measure the critical thinking skills of the folks that are already within your place of employment? They often say they don't. So there is no real criterion of interest. So there's a lot of lip service that we have to work our way through as well. And so we're doing that by bringing each of these parties together and having constructive conversations about the skills that individuals need to perform well in their workplace, and address them by understanding the constraints of assessment and what we can and cannot do in terms of our abilities to measure these skills. That is all. Thank you.